Hello and welcome to What Goes Around. My name is Deb Grant.
And my name is Eamon Murtaugh. Sounded serious then, didn't it?
It did, yeah, like news round.
News round? News round? News night, maybe.
Sorry, yeah, news
Like
night.
John Craven.
My mistake. On the show today, we have DJing legend DJ Paulette, recent Lifetime Achievement Award winner, Manchester legend, worldwide DJing legend, I would say. Eamon talks to DJ Paulette.
And she was lovely. But before we talk to the lovely DJ Paulette, who is very lovely, as I have said, we do spend some time talking to each other, Deb. And we talk about going to gigs, and I talk about a particular gig that I went to that fair enough blew my mind. But that's not all, is it?
Today on the pod, Eamon is talking to Simon Price about his book Curepedia, all about the magic of the cure, all about Robert Smith and his antics, which to a baby goth like me, and like you, Eamon, is pretty exciting stuff.
Let's pod.
Let's pod. Oh my God. Eamon, you're living in the past.
So long ago, sorry. Dear Deb Grant, please tell us what is going around.
I've been thinking a lot about music festivals and the ones that are coming up this year. I have this I don't know if you know, but I have this fancy new job.
I have heard there's something going on there.
Yeah. And you know, it's focused on new music, and one of the things that's important for our show, going to lots of gigs, which is great, fine. And Manchester is so easy that I've been to more gigs. I've been to more gigs in the past half year in Manchester than I probably went to in London in the previous 5 years, just because it's not such a pain in the bollocks getting home.
But also, of course, you know, you've got nothing else to do, have you?
100% true. Although I didn't have that much to do when I was in London either.
That's true, but the thing about London is it's not how I always describe it is like what I liked about London was knowing there was always culture going on.
Yeah.
That is not to say that I was going to it, but I found it reassuring to know it was going on very
I
close to
suppose so, but then I would picture myself going to said thing and be like, oh, there's going to be a fucking convoy of prams I'm going to have to try and get through, or it's going to be a pain in the hole to get to and from. It's going to take me an hour on the fucking tube. I can walk to most venues in Manchester from where I live. It's pretty bloody handy. So yes, I've been to a lot of great gigs this year. And I'm anticipating going to a lot more great gigs. In fact, some of my gig highlights, Eamon, I went to see Iron Maiden, a band who I didn't. Yes, I did. Lord. I had no familiarity particularly with Iron Maiden before, but the opportunity came up to go. And they put on a real show. That Bruce Dickinson, he knows how to put on a show. And it was the biggest, first of all, the ratio of men to women.
Metal is not good for the battle of the sexes.
But it was so lovely just looking down into the crowd and just seeing all the shirtless male bonding that was going on, like really high levels of emotion and just friendship and platonic love between men. It was really, really beautiful, and they just know their audience. Like the show was fucking like 2.5 hours long. I swear to God. And they like brought out all these props. Your man Barry the skeleton or whatever his name is. What's his name?
Eddie Barry. I don't think Iron Maiden would have made such a big mark on the metal scene if they had a mascot called Barry. That just doesn't
maybe
fly.
Barry was the prototype. But yeah, Eddie was there.
I'm going to call him Barry from now on.
Me too. There was this moment where this like big robot came out, or maybe it was, and like there was a gun, and like Bruce Dickinson was like shooting the robot with a gun. It was like,
see, this is the thing. It's like, you know, I'm not really a metal guy. I like quite a lot of bits around metal, but it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if you can accept the ridiculous, it is good fun, isn't it?
It was really fun. It was really good fun. Also, when I went to the bathroom, the girls' toilets were completely empty. That was a real thrill.
Nice.
Never happens. And it was just, it was really just good, stupid fun. I loved it. That was really good. I saw Kurt Weill. That was adorable. Who else did I see? I should have thought about this before I started talking about it.
I'll just give you one side note, because you say about them, that must have been nice about the bathroom, because like that is often the worst thing of a gig. Because also, I mean, you don't drink as much as I do, but I have a few pints, so I need to go. Do you know what I mean? I remember going to see the specials at Hammersmith, and he needed a fucking boat to get. It was so bad.
Oh, that is rank.
So the idea of having a nice, pristine, no queue system, that sounds good.
I mean, the men's toilets would have been an absolute quagmire, because at this venue...
play with madness? Yes, go to the toilet. It's right there.
I think it was the AOA Arena, and they sell like, you know how in some of these big stadium venues you can get like a giant bucket of beer, so you don't have to keep going. It's like 4 pints in one or something. So I imagine it was a sorry state of affairs in the bathroom. But yeah, I had a good time. Yeah, that was fun. And then I went, Kurt Vile was really good. I went
He's
to
lovely live, isn't he?
So lovely. I mean, the gig was far too long. Again, it was like 2.5 hours. Like, I can't enjoy anything for that long.
Is everything just going on too long nowadays? It's like all films seem to be 3 hours nowadays.
Yes, I think so. But you know what I think it is with gigs? I think just the cost of everything has gone up, and touring is just so insanely expensive, especially in the UK. And I think that artists have to charge more for gigs, and so they want to give people their money's worth, and it's just too long. It's like, no, leave me wanting more.
Yeah, that's 2.5 hours is too much.
Yeah,
it's like Bruce Springsteen used to play those 4-hour gigs. I'm just thinking, I have not got that much
too
time
much.
to
Like,
Bruce.
There's nothing, like I say, I don't enjoy, even like eating. I can't enjoy doing it for that long. I have to move on to something else.
You know, that's a good thing, because I've been to a couple of those fancy, like, many course, like 10 courses with paired wines and all that sort of stuff, and they're really good fun for about 6 courses. And it's like, oh Jesus, I'm so
total
fat.
Fatigue.
I
end up hungry by the end of them. I'm just like, I started eating. I started eating a whole meal ago. But yes, I don't like the tasting menu approach to gigs.
Too much.
Manchester Psych Fest was really good. I saw Brian Jonestown Massacre. Saw Brian Eno. No, not Brian Eno. What the fuck am I talking about? John Cale. I saw John Cale.
Oh,
that was really good. And that was really fun. We went to Barcelona for Primavera Festival. Have you been to Primavera?
I have not, but it looks lovely.
It's so nice. It's so civilized. It's just big enough so that you don't get too lost. Everything's really walkable. The stage timings are really good. So, like, there were no particularly bad clashes. Some great artists on the bill. I saw La Tigra. I saw Moldy Peaches. I saw Boris. That was fucking wild.
Wow. Now that's my kind of metal.
Yeah,
Boris.
That was moving. Saw Blackhain. Do you know Blackhain?
No, I don't know that. No.
Like a really makes really weird sort of electronic rap influenced, I guess, music, but it was in this underground car park, and it was just so much dry ice you couldn't see 2 inches in front of your face. It was incredibly intense. And, you know, because it's Spain, you fucking eat your dinner at like 10 o'clock at night, and then the headliners are on at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So that was pretty, and then you just nap all day, which suited me.
Oh, now that sounds great.
It was
I'm
good.
In for a disco nap.
Yeah,
anytime.
The weather's nice. The people are all really good looking because they're Spanish. Some great mullets. New Order were there. Blur were there. It was really good. I really enjoyed Primavera.
Bristol is very good for festivals because, like, in the summer, every festival you know is basically crewed by people from Bristol. So Glastonbury,
that's so
it's
true.
all Bristol people. Shangri-La, it's all Bristol people.
So true.
It's all these different places. Love Saves the Day. Loads of different festivals. They're all basically have some big, deep connection with Bristol. So it's like I'm DJing all summer. It's like a ghost town. There's nobody here. I go to work. It's like 28 days later, but in the southwest. But you know, because there are loads of things going on, you know, Bristol people, they know how to do a festival and they get into it. And they had this festival called Forwards, and I got free tickets because Bristol Radio were giving out loads of free tickets. A neighbour of mine won the tickets, and then so she couldn't go, so she gave me the ticket. So there I was. I went on my own, so solo festival day, and that was really good.
What was happening there? What was the vibe?
Well, so they had Gabrielle's, who were amazing. And then they had...
You mean Gabriel's, or do you mean Gabrielle?
Well, I had a 2-hour conversation with a woman about whether it was Gabriel's or Gabrielle's. Is it Gabriel's? I guess
Gabriel's, yeah.
You're in the north.
Do you know how I know that? Because I was hanging out with Jacob Lusk all summer.
Get out of town!
He's my pal.
Gabriel's.
Just don't ask him if he knows who I am.
It's unlikely to be in the same room as me, don't worry. But yeah, them and Left Field and
fun.
What's her name? Erica Badu.
Whoa, this sounds amazing.
Oh, the Erica Badu is incredible. She was an amazing 25 minutes late.
That is good. That is good compared to.
No,
what
I
I've
mean
heard.
25 minutes late after the band had started.
Okay.
So it wasn't like 25 minutes, oh, she'll be on in a minute. It's like the band are on stage, they are playing. They played 3 songs and managed to make them last 25 minutes. Oh my God.
What does she do? What is she doing that always makes her late? I'd love to know.
You know, this must be like, I don't know, 50 grand gig to her. Do you know what I mean? She's come all the way from America to be in Bristol. What has she done 25 minutes before she's on stage? Oh, God, I've got to nip to the shops. I'm out of batteries for a personal stereo. I've got to, something must have come up. But anyway, so she didn't even arrive on stage. The band played a track. The band are amazing. It was great. Brilliant track. Everyone, hooray! Bit of a quiet moment. Band start another track. Okay, go. And then kind of do this instrumental. That's a good instrumental. Very good. And then there's another awkward moment, and then it's like, oh Jesus, well, they've only got one more instrumental they can play. So they start playing this track, and honestly, they jammed it for 20 minutes. It was endless.
Oh, man.
And we were all thinking, what's Erica doing? Erica's like trying to do her shoes up or something, I don't know. So, and eventually she came out after 25 minutes and, was amazing. It was brilliant. She was absolute showstopper. But God, how do you get... I mean, I kind of had that before with Grace Jones, but that's Grace Jones. You let Grace Jones
Maybe it's one of those things where it's like... You want to get people to the point where they're doubting that they're even going to see you, and then you come out and you blow their minds even more than you would do.
Well, that was definitely the case because there were people contemplating leaving at one stage. It was just like, she's not showing, is she? No, it's over. But that was... So they did that, and they turned the volume up for the last act. So she was really loud as well. The sound was really good, really enjoyed it. And then the next day there was the odd little murmur of complaints on the social media network saying, oh, it's very loud. It's very loud music they had at that music festival. Yeah, that's kind of what music festivals are. But anyway, so I thought, well, if you enjoyed Erica Badu last night in that manner, then wait for Saturday because Aphex Twin headlined. Deb, I'm not kidding. You know I like it mentally.
Yeah.
I have not heard anything even close to Aphex Twin in 20, 30 years. It was absolutely insane. It was like the sound of washing machines being thrown into canyons with explosions, sudden bursts of jungle techno and insane bass, and then just electronic feedback, and it was so relentless. And there was not a he did not... I mean, at one point I remember just shouting, all the hits! because there was nothing recognisable in the entire set. Not a single note had ever been played by Aphex Twin before.
What do the neighbours think about that?
I'm not even exaggerating. I saw people running away from the stage. Running a full pelt. And one girl, almost in tears, just shouting, what are they doing to me? Like crying as she goes past. And the best thing was, before, they had Primal Scream on.
Oh, yeah.
So you had all your mod dads, that go out twice a year. And they're all like with the little sideburns being pulled down. And, it's all very... very traditional, and even Left Field, who were on the other stage before they started, Left Field were great, but they weren't exactly the same as they were in 1993 or whatever. It was almost like heritage rave. It was like kind of, could have been on Magic FM or something. It was really good. Not saying it was terrible, but
it was cold.
It was just kind of by numbers. Do you know what I mean? They just did a good show, and fair play to that. But then the Aphex came on and just fucking terrorised the place. It was so loud, and it was so unmusical, and the visuals were the most intense I've ever seen. And he just started and played for an hour and a half or whatever, none of it recognisable, all of it off the scale, fucking dark and weird, points where you just thought, I just started laughing, like properly laughing, because if I didn't laugh I'd have cried, because it was so bizarre and surreal. It just happened to you. You weren't... It was like he held like 20,000 people prisoner for an hour and tortured them. It was fan-fucking-tastic.
That must be so fun, just to be like, everyone's really excited to see me. I'm going to make a whole field of people feel physically sick.
It was insane. And I just, all the time, I kept thinking about those poor people who were complaining at Erykah Badu the night before, just going, what is going on now? Yeah, superb. So more of that at festivals, I think. More risk-taking, more insanity, please.
I want some of that spirit too.
That really gave me a boost. It was like, that gave me energy, do you know? I just thought, you can still do it. You can still shock and surprise people if you've got the balls to do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And he definitely had. I mean, it came to the end, and there was no like, good night, let's do it. Let's do a little, come back on, a big round of applause and do the big hit. No, it's just insane. That was it. Gone. And everyone, like normally at the end of a night, there's like a big round of applause. And it was like, It was like a second and a half of absolute dead silence. Like 20,000 people just going, what the fuck just happened? That was insane. So yeah, more of that. If you get a chance, go and see Aphex Twin.
I mean, you've sold it to me. Might take a Valium beforehand.
Might need to. There have been many changes in the world of music over the last 45 years, but one thing remains constant, and that is the enduring love that fans have for the Gothic archangels of Robert Smith and The Cure. Reminiscent of John Peel's description of The Fall, The Cure have always remained the same whilst always being different. From the spiky 3-minute post-punk pop of Three Imaginary Boys to the sumptuous gloom of Disintegration and beyond, The Cure have become a truly iconic British band that quietly took over the world. Now Simon Price has finally created a book worthy of their glittering, if shadowy, career, with his gigantic and reverent tome Curepedia, a painstaking collection of writings, pictures and ephemera that covers the A to Z of all things Robert Smith led. We're so pleased to have Simon Price on the podcast today to tell us more about this incredible book and the inspirations behind it. Welcome to the pod, Simon.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, it's a great pleasure, and I have to say, as a pretty much lifelong Cure fan, what an exciting book this is. Could you just tell us a little bit about the preface of the book and what you've set out to do with it?
Well, I can't claim credit for the idea. That came from the publishers. They've been trying to find the right fit for me for a long time. I wrote a book about the Manic Street Preachers many years ago, but never really followed it up. And I sort of went back into journalism and wrote a newspaper column for about 12 years after that. And a guy called Lee Braxton, who was originally at Faber, now at White Rabbit, was always looking for the right project for me. And he just said, why don't we do a massive A to Z of The Cure? And I thought about it, and I thought, is that a gimmick? Is that, just a sort of daft way of approaching it? Or could it actually work? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought it sort of freed me up a bit. It liberated me from having to follow a structure, follow a sort of timeline, so I could write in a more thematic way and jump back and forth between different eras. So, for example, there are essays on the band's relation to religion and sex and drugs and alcohol, all that stuff, and politics, and even sort of more trivial matters like hair, makeup, football.
You can't ignore the hair and makeup with the Cure,
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's how it came about. It took way longer than it should have done. It took me 3 years. It was, exhaustive and exhausting, to be honest. But it's a weighty tome. It's the same kind of length as Middlemarch or Gravity's Rainbow or Ulysses or something. It's half the length of the Bible, I found out.
That is what we want to hear. I love it.
A few more jokes in there, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I love the look of it. It's one of those things. It's not a cheap stick in your pocket paperback. This is like a treasure for Cure fans, isn't it? This is a beautiful object.
They've done a lovely job on the design. It's kind of textured matte red and black cover, and it's got a ribbon in it so you don't lose your place. Hey. And it's got artwork at the front and back by Andy Veller, who is The Cure's own record sleeve designer for many years. So it's a lovely looking thing, and I like to think that it's got some prose in there that matches up to that. And it's just about just about small enough that you can carry it around and read it. It's just short of being a coffee table book, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully it's in a readable format.
Well, two things I always love in a book is either a map at the front, because I like fantasy stuff, and one of those little bits of thread that you can keep your page. So that sounds great already.
Maybe I need a map for the second edition.
Yeah, let's have a map.
Mainly Sussex with Crawley and Hawley and stuff. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, you say it took you 3 years, and I'm really not surprised because, they have been steadily banging out tunes for 45 years now, and although the lineups have swelled and shrunk, obviously Robert Smith has always been at the epicenter of it, but there's so much to tell, and in a way I can really understand why like an encyclopedia makes more sense, because I think if you were going to tell this in a chronological order, taking in each of the albums and saying this, that and the other about when this, it would drag on a little bit. Do you know what I mean? But I think the idea of being able to look at different aspects of such a massive career is really quite appealing.
Yeah, well, one thing I've said in the intro is that it turns out that writing a book about The Cure means writing a book about everything, because I just found myself disappearing down these research rabbit holes, and they're such a rich band in that respect that the more you kind of unpick the meaning of the lyrics, the more you find. So they're very much influenced by literature. So, you end up putting in bits about Dylan Thomas and Mervyn Peake, Albert Camus, all that sort of stuff, Baudelaire. As you say, they have a very long career, so there's a lot to cover just factually. I've got an essay on every album, every single, every band member, and selected other songs as well. I found that they're one of those bands that really feed your brain. It's not just background listening. It sort of almost opens up a whole box of knowledge, and a lot of my favourite bands like that, Manic Street Preachers, the Smiths, Dexys Midnight Runners, they're like an education.
Yeah, there's so many touchstones that they bring into your life over the years. I think one of the things that's really interesting about The Cure is the way they have managed to go through so many changes and yet always consistently have a recognisable style. Now, I mentioned in the intro, that they started off with these spiky little pop songs, and they've done very gloomy, sort of murky goth things like Faith, which is my favourite album.
Yeah,
Head on the Door, which is, pop music in a large part, but mixed up with really weird religious imagery. All these different albums, even like big double albums like Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. I mean, these are such different bits of work. They veer from like absolute gloom to total pop to throwaway bubblegum stuff and back again, but everything feels like The Cure, doesn't it?
Yeah, they haven't been afraid over the years to maybe shed a proportion of their fan base by changing. They will take that risk. And some of the albums you mentioned there, Faith, Pornography is another very dark, intense album. It literally starts with the words, "It doesn't matter if we all die." And then from the back of that, the band pretty much, disintegrated, to use the word, because they all fell out horribly and Simon Gallup left and there was just two of them, Lol Tolhurst and Robert Smith. Their manager, Chris Parry, challenged them to write some pop songs, just like a last roll of the dice. And they did. They wrote 3 of them. Let's Go to Bed, which didn't chart. The Walk, which did, and the Lovecats, which made the top 10. Yeah. And suddenly they're on top of the pops again, and they're in Smash Hits magazine, and they're reaching an entire fan base that they never could have done before. And some people would criticise them for that. Oh, they've sold out, they've gone pop. But I love the way that they've since then managed to balance those two things. The albums you mentioned, The Head on the Door, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, have very much got both things. The latter of those is almost like a greatest hits album in itself, in that it's a double and it's just got every aspect of what they do.
But I can remember the visceral joy of seeing them do something like the Caterpillar on top of the pops.
Yeah.
And people do say that thing, oh, Lovecats is a big seller. I never really got that angle because I just thought, still sounds exactly like a Cure song. It's, it's boppy and it's exciting. But the thing about it is like, if you want to say, oh, they've sold out, listen to the rest of the album because It's not. It's not an easy. It's not a throwaway thing at all. There's lots of very strange instrumentation and very curious subject matter, and they've always managed to balance those things.
Yeah, the Caterpillar from the top. The top is a crazy album.
It's bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, this was the year 1983 when he was recording that, where he was in 3 bands at the same time. He was in Susie and the Banshees, he was in The Cure, and he was in The Glove, which was a side project with Steve Severin from the Banshees. And he was spinning all these plates and literally going by taxi from the Banshee studio in Twickenham to the Cure studio in Reading to finish off those albums, and to the extent it was damaging his health, and that his GP said to him, just took one look at him and said, "You've got to stop this or you're going to die." And maybe the album that came out of it does show that. It's the sense of somebody burning the candle at both ends and also melting the middle of the candle.
Yeah. One of the things I think is great about having a big book like this is that The Cure have had such a strong aesthetic over the years. That I used to work in computer games, and I can remember one day I was in the Sony offices and someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Oh, you like music, don't you?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You like The Cure?" I said, "I love The Cure." He goes, "Well, look behind you." And I looked behind me, and there was Robert Smith. And, there was no doubting. Like, it is exactly what you imagine Robert Smith to look like. He was that guy. He wasn't like, he wasn't one of those ones that finishes his show and then changes into his suit and goes home. He lives that life, and he was absolutely a caricature of what my brain thought Robert Smith should be like.
Brilliant.
And that aesthetic has just held all the way, and even to now. I mean, he's in his, is he 60 now?
60s, yeah, he's in his 60s. Yeah, I think he's almost a living experiment in what happens if you just don't stop and don't give up. He's just kept pretty much that look and that aesthetic the whole way through, and he's kind of inspired me to do the same, to be honest. I'm still wearing makeup after all these years.
That's so cool. I mean, these are the sort of things that, our podcast is very much about fans and how fans relate to the music. And these are the kind of geeky little details that we want out of a book,
Yeah.
So it's lovely to have them all put together like this. I think another interesting thing about The Cure is that they not only did they have a pop success, but slowly they crept across the world. Now, they are, a worldwide phenomenon now, and they're one of the very few English bands that, I wouldn't say they didn't break America in the classic "we've had 5 number ones" or anything, but they're so huge in areas like America, all around Europe, basically all around the world. But it happened in such a weirdly organic way, and it's absolutely Teflon now. Nothing can knock it down, nothing can stick to it. They have built their own empire, haven't they? Yeah,
you're absolutely right. If you look at the stats for their biggest ever gigs, 2 of the 3 largest audiences they play to as headliners are in Mexico. So they're huge in the Latin, Spanish-speaking world, and I think the reason for that is that they've never written in sort of geo-specific terms. They don't write about London landmarks and stuff like that. They write about emotions that people all around the world can identify with, loneliness and feeling like an outsider and all that kind of stuff that some people can write off as being, I don't know, teenage angst or sort of suburban despair. But I think those things are pretty much universal, and that's why they've transcended eras, generations, national boundaries, all of that.
It is such a precious thing, and it looks so wonderful, and I know it's going to be so deeply layered with little nuggets of information, and also it seems like you've really gone for the philosophy behind the band and all that sort of stuff, which is super important for fans. That this is kind of what, when we sit there and listen to the music, we daydream about what these things mean, and it having a tome like this, I think, will really be a wonderful thing for every fan. So I really look forward to looking at it more closely. Thanks so much for talking to us today. I think this book is going to be a real treasured possession for everyone who gets hold of one.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.
What we're gonna do right here is go back.
Way back into time. That's right. Name that tune. Get up, everybody. Name that tune.
Our guest today is trailblazing DJ, presenter and author who has carved herself a position of love and respect in the music industry that climaxed with a Lifetime Achievement Award from DJ Magazine. Ever since she found her way into the DJ booth, she has honed her style, listening, learning and leading. DJ Paulette started her career in this home city of Manchester, playing some of the most influential clubs in the history of house. She played the infamous Flesh Night at the Hacienda and began to create ripples that became waves that she surfed out to London, Brighton, Paris, Ibiza and the world. Her new book, Welcome to the Club, is a frank and funny look at club culture and the myth of the glamorous DJ lifestyle. Today we're delighted to welcome Paulette to share her memories about the music she loved and the memories she's made along the way. Welcome to What Goes Around.
Oh, hello. Yeah. That's a lovely introduction. I'm just grinning from ear to ear.
Well, I really enjoyed, I've been reading the book the last few days, and I've really enjoyed the kind of, in our modern age now, DJing is like a cynical choice of...
Yes.
Everything's kind of like numbers and profiles and all that kind of stuff.
Algorithms.
And what I love about your story is like you kind of accidentally walked into the DJ booth.
Yeah, totally.
And then suddenly you're playing at the Hacienda, but not just the Hacienda, because I think it kind of does a bit of a disservice. There's a few things about Manchester culture that I think people don't get unless they've been to Manchester. One of which is like this Hacienda kind of has a block sort of, this is what it is. And actually, yes, those sort of really early days with the live bands and stuff and Madonna doing PAs and stuff, and then the whole acid house thing coming on, that is kind of what people think of. But there's a whole history that comes on after that. And I think, from everything I've read about it, the club that took you on board, Flesh, that was the club that saved the Hacienda, because yes, it was turning into a I'm not talking Coolio, but a gangster's paradise. It was yeah, rough, and there was violence all around it because suddenly there was so much money from all the drugs that were going on around that scene. But Flesh, you turned it on its head by putting on this, we say gay night, but as I read in your book, it was a night for gays, lesbians and their friends.
Yes, it was a monthly Wednesday night.
Yeah.
It was a midweek. So it was something, first of all, that clubs weren't really focusing on, or would even think they could fully market to that many people in Manchester on a midweek. I mean, Hacienda held, 1,500 to possibly illegally just under 2,000 people.
So I've been there on nights where it's more than 1,500.
And to fill that, I mean, you have to attract quite a lot of people from quite a lot of corners of not just the city, but corners of the
whole country.
The country, really. They changed or switched on its head even the gay culture of clubbing, which had been very segregated up until that point. So the guys went where the guys went, and the lesbians went where the lesbians went, and you didn't really get the two factors mixing. And very much up until Flesh, the big gay nights had been pretty much all male. And then you had the lesbian nights on the other side, which, generally weren't attracting that many people until, first of all, Lucy Sher did the Lesbian Summer of Love, and it attracted over 1,000 lesbians. And they then realised that, actually, yes, we do have a market for doing a club night like this. Putting the gays and lesbians together in the Hacienda, which in its first 9 years of operation had not had a gay night. It wasn't particularly or especially gay friendly. To put it in the biggest club in Manchester, the biggest straight club in Manchester, because also bear in mind, when they started Flesh, it was coming off the back of Section 28, all of the negative gay press post-AIDS, or you know, it was around the time of the AIDS crisis, so anything gay, it was dirty, you could catch it. We were fags, we were puffs, we were queers, you know, it wasn't, gay clubbing wasn't the cool thing that we have in 23. We kind of did what we did, so in 2023 we could have what we have now.
Yeah, and it really did. It saved that whole. I mean, it pretty much saved the club, because that was the one.
Well, it made
thing.
money for a start.
It made money, and also it brought back a bit of love and a bit of peace. Do you know what I mean? It changed,
Love, peace,
changed the
unity.
feeling of that club, because it was beginning to get this dire reputation. And
yeah, it gave it glamour. It also put Manchester on the map in a different way, because up until they did Flesh, Manchester clubbing, or Manchester just in general, had a really negative association with people. And I think we are still, even in 2023, suffering the backdraft of gangs and guns, and you know, every paper, every time they want to run a story on Manchester, it's always gangs and guns, because we can't shake that post, you know, end of the 80s into the 90s horror stories. But what Flesh did, and the phrases were very much coined in Manchester, it became Gaychester. It's queer up north, and it, you know, that was the banner headline for Flesh when it started, was it's queer up north. And it made it acceptable and cool and desirable to be in Manchester and to be gay in Manchester. So it attracted people from all over the country, because there was a safe space for people to come and party and be who they are, as gay as they wanted to be, because you could not be that gay outside of those four walls.
Yeah, it's true. And you look at the reverberations of that as well, you know, because nowadays you've got Canal Street, or Anal Tree, as the sign used to say.
On purpose.
I loved that.
Yeah.
But you know, that is a thriving, out and proud whole section of the city, which I mean, I'm not gay, but I used to go drinking down there, because it was the nicest place in Manchester to be. Do you know what I mean? And there's an openness and a real friendliness around that whole scene that kind of, like I say, I think it changed the perceptions a little bit. And
I think it's to do with inclusion. It's to do with that. First of all, pride in who you are, and also acceptance of everybody for who they are, no matter how they wanted to be. You know, if you're cool with us, we're cool with you. And we hadn't had that acceptance from anybody else, but we created that. You know, there was the creation of that environment that made it, you know, it kind of attracted people like a magnet to that area. You know, you say Canal Street, but really it was Mantos really that kicked it off in 91 on Canal Street, because they took the gay out of the basements, out of the dark dingy pubs, and put it in a glass fronted, because it had been illegal. They put it in a glass fronted building with cables outside. They broke every single code and every single law. They did, because same sex was only allowed at 21, and you could go in a bar and a club at 18. So Flesh and Mantos, and then Paradise Factory, made being young and gay okay.
And you found your way in there, but it seems to me like, as I started saying at the top of the show, you know, nowadays it's a very cynical thing, but you kind of found yourself drawn to the music, really, and it feels like reading the book that everything just rippled out from Flesh. Do you know what I mean? Like your love and enthusiasm for the music carried you.
Well, in terms of DJing, it came from Flesh, but I've always been in music. I have always, for, you know, pretty much since I was born, I've been put on the stage by my mum, singing and dancing in shows in the West Indian Centre with my sisters. You know, so all of my family are and have been musically oriented and record buyers, and I've been clubbing since I've been 15. So, you know, I've pretty much done every club in Manchester that I've danced on every dance floor in Manchester that I could possibly dance on. So the music was there in me, and Flesh helped bring the DJ side of me out.
So when you say the music was in you, let's talk about some of your phonographic memories. And I know, I'm sorry, this is just lovely for me because I'm a massive David Bowie obsessive.
Yes, and so am I. And have been since I was 7 years old.
Same as that. My elder sister had a copy of Hunky Dory, and I just listened to it all day, every day. I actually got thrown out of my class at school for constantly singing David Bowie songs, and eventually
I'm not surprised, because lyrically they're a bit challenging for 7-year-olds.
I know, but I wasn't too aware, but I was certainly into it. Well, eventually they sat me next to this nice girl called Claire Davis, who said she didn't mind me singing, so I just sang next to her for about 3 years. It's quite sweet, actually. When David Bowie died, I hadn't seen her in 25 years, and she just sent me a message through Facebook saying, "You all right?" I thought,
isn't that lovely?
Yeah. But let's talk about Changes by David Bowie and the album, and you know, how you came across that and what that means to you.
Yeah, well, Hunky Dory was an album that was owned by both two of my sisters. Alicia and Jenny had copies of this album. I think I inherited Jenny's copy, or I say I inherited it. I'm not sure she knows I've got it, to be honest. No, I'm sure she does. But that's what people do with records. You find them and keep them. I am a magpie. I hold my hands up.
Yeah, I sometimes describe my record collection as like the Borg. Do you know what I mean? Like in Star Trek, where you just absorb.
Yeah, totally.
Anyone's got spare vinyl, I'm like.
I'm like a magnet with iron filings. It all just kind of attaches to me, and yeah. So, Jenny and Alicia both had a copy of this album, and I played it on repeat. I know that all David Bowie albums anyway, I kind of know from start to end, and I can pick them up in the middle or anywhere, and I can sing the segues or the links and everything. I know all of it. But this particular track just mesmerized me, because it's in the silence and the spaces and then the notes. And from the first chord that you hear on the piano key, it just I can feel all the baby hairs on the back of my neck just standing to attention. There is just such a sense of peace and beauty, and then when the lyrics tell the story, it just opened up a whole other world, and it just spoke to me in a way that, you know, when songs speak to you in that way, you know they're going to be stuck with you for life. Definitely. And that is Changes for me.
Still don't know what I was waiting for, and my time was running wild, a million dead-end streets, and every time I thought I got it made, it seemed the taste was not so sweet. So I turn myself to face me, but I've never caught a glimpse of how the others must see the faker. I'm much too fast to take that test. Changes. Turn and face the strange. Changes. Don't wanna be a richer man. Changes. Turn and face the strange. Changes.
Funny because we both had the same experience of discovering it really quite young.
Yeah.
But it is an album about growing up to a large extent. You know, I mean, there's a lot of it where they, you know, the things it talks about. Even tracks like Kooks, where it's, you know, all about going to school and not going to
I
school.
love that
I
song.
mean, there's so much joy and there's so many layers. But even though I was too young to understand some of it, there was enough of it to get me on that on-ramp. And then as I became a teenager and, you know, we all changed. And also, let's not forget the visual image of David Bowie and all of the things that went with that.
Yeah.
All of that stayed with me right through teens, and I'm sure looking at how, you know, I've been looking at videos of you online and stuff from various sets from time immemorial.
Oh, everything needs to do with the mime.
I can see a little bit of glam in you.
Just a little. You know, it's funny. I think of the way I dress now and the way I dressed when I was starting to club, and it's been so much influenced by three: David Bowie, Brian Ferry and Grace Jones.
Not a bad trio.
They, for style, for me, were just the trifecta of cool, because they just really played with you know, androgyny. And I've always felt very much in the middle of everything. Very much in the middle of black and white, very much in the middle of gay and straight, very much in the middle of pretty much of rock and roll and soul, very much in the middle of disco and electronic. I've always felt very much in the middle and absorbing all these influences. And the makeup, the drama, the performance, and getting all of that to work so beautifully and to feel just totally organic and natural, you know, authentic. You know, this is who they were. They weren't pretending to be, you know, they weren't, you know, just putting on an outfit because it was weird. They were putting on an outfit because it was them.
Yeah.
They were putting on the baggy pants or the sharp suit or the flat top hair or the red head with a circle on the forehead or the baggy pants with a big white shirt and long hair, or long hair and a dress.
Yeah.
Because that was hunky-dory anyway.
Yeah, totally.
You know, that it's long hair and a dress. And it was a guy. It was obviously a guy. But why not? You know, because it suited him. He looked absolutely perfect lying on that sofa in a dress.
Absolutely. I'm not sure there's ever a bad photo of David Bowie, but there we go.
Capricorn, you know, Capricorn as well. I have to take that too.
yeah, you know what you want, you know how to get it.
yeah, and I know how I want to look, you know, and also being able to be all of those things. So you can be casual, but you can be sharp.
Yes.
And you can be dark, and you can be theatrical, and you can be all of those things, and it's okay to be all of those things.
And I think, you know, from where you started at Flesh and stuff, that obviously that all came through, but you kind of you had a very there's like a sweeping arc of your career. It seems to me that one thing kind of led to another, but you managed to reach out to people beyond. I mean, it would have been very easy to do your little spot there and then, you know,
and be happy with it.
Happy with that, but you kept going and kept reaching, and I think, you know, Bowie's one of those artists, and Grace Jones as well, that are very much always aspirational and looking for the next thing. Have you always been, you know, in music and in life in general, are you always looking for something new coming
do
up?
you know, there's a funny thing, like when I was younger, in the olden days, when I was growing up, say probably 7, 8, I've always known 2 things about myself. One, that I was going to perform on a stage in front of thousands of people, and 2, that I was going to write a book. There are key presents in my childhood growing up. One of them, my dad bought me and my twin a petite typewriter. My twin wasn't bothered with it. She couldn't have cared less. She just totally, you know, she was interested, but she wasn't as interested as I was, because when we got the typewriter, I made myself the editor of a magazine. I created a magazine called Clarissa Talk, and I made it every week and forced my family to read it.
Fantastic.
And then, and the other present was, you know, my mum always, you know, we were bought records, and I saved my spends to buy records. And music and performing, I was taught to play the violin, the piano, you know, performing was like, I wanted to do it, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. And I think what happened was I tried, you know, singing in bands, recording in studios, and I kind of got a little tickle, but I hadn't quite found my how.
Yeah.
And then when I started DJing and people started booking me in other places, not just in their Hacienda, you know, I was in Leeds, I was in Nottingham, I was in Glasgow, I started to get bookings in Brighton, London, all over the country. And then I realised, like, hey, actually, you know, this is the thing.
It's your calling.
And I realised that I could actually do this. And I could do more than this, because it had opened the door. DJing very definitely opened the door to me doing so many other things.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing as well. It's like, you are known primarily as the DJ, but you've done a lot more in the industry, and you've had some really loads. Yes, you know that you say that with a heavy sigh, but
no, not a heavy sigh. But I mean, it's a weird thing that I could have done so much, and then, you know, lots of people not really be aware of it. But I think, because I've moved around a lot, it kind of breaks the continuum.
Yeah.
So people in London know what I've done in London, and they haven't connected that I existed before I got there.
Yeah.
And that there was a story before I got there. People in Manchester know the story in Manchester up until I moved to London, and then it's like there's been a break. So they've only kind of got to know what happened in that break when I got back in 2015. So there was like a 21-year gap.
And then was France in the middle, you know, that was a big...
Yeah, exactly. There was France and Spain, and people are still not connecting. And you know, can still not connect what happened for me in France, because they don't speak French. They don't understand the culture. They don't understand the clubs. And there's been, like, you know, what happened for me in France was probably bigger than anything I've ever done in my entire life. And people have no idea of what that was.
But also, you've done, you know, those are still primarily, there is DJ stuff at the top, but I'm really interested in all the other things you do, because you did TV presenting, you did PR, you did some amazing PR and A&R for Zoom Records and all that sort of stuff, finding really great acts and pushing them on. Yeah. You did the PR for Ronnie Size Represent. I mean, that was a total game changer for that whole scene, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just to get not only that album out in front of so many people, but also then it ends up winning the Mercury
Bear
Prize.
in mind, I'd never done PR in my entire life. I didn't even have a clue what it was. Wow. I didn't even know any PRs. I didn't know what I was supposed to do when I got the job. I got the job because I interviewed well for it and really wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But I did not know how to do that job when I got the job.
Girl, you killed
I
it.
learned. I totally learned as quick as I could what I needed to do. And I didn't even ask anybody for help. You know, this is just the mad thing. I didn't ask anybody. Nobody told me how to do it. But I just kind of figured it out. I'm always that kind of person that figures it out. I like to be, you know, even though I don't enjoy being pushed out of my comfort zone, I do enjoy being pushed out of my comfort zone because I really like a challenge. Same with writing the book. I really like a challenge. So I've done a lot of things that I've not known how to do, and I've learned how to do really quickly. And then not only have I learned how to do it, I've been really good at it.
Well, this is the difference, I think, is what you said there, is like, I don't think reading the book, I don't think you were pushed into many things at all. I think you pulled yourself towards things that you thought were bright and shiny and you wanted. And you went and got that shit.
Yeah. I did. I think 'cause I'm just dead nosy. I'm really nosy, and from being very small, I've always taken things apart and wanted to know how they work, and then put them back together again and said, look, fixed it. I'm really, really good at putting lots of disparate pieces together and making big things that work really well out of them.
Yeah.
And I love people. I love connecting people, and I love connecting with people. You know, I come from a big family. I think that's part of it, is that I really like having families around me. I like creating families. I like, and I love spotting talent. And it's something also that I've done from being very small, was if I heard a record on the radio, I would say to my sisters, or, you know, even when I was working, I remember when I was working in advertising, and we used to have this thing where I'd go, that's going to be a hit. And we'd put money on it. And I was just winning all the time, because I could spot hits every time. And one of the records was Lisa Stansfield's Around the World, and
that was it.
the first time I heard it, I was like, that's going to be a hit, it's going to be number one for ages. And people laughed at me in the office. I took so much money home on that track.
I'll bet you did.
Because every day when they played it, it was just like ching.
Yeah. She's one of my podcast wish lists, I have to say, because I love
she's
the
incredible.
Way that not only was she hugely successful, but people just don't know how big that was in America. That was, you know,
it was enormous.
They loved that record. They absolutely loved that record, and it was at a time when that wasn't happening for a lot of people, you know. Yeah.
And also, you know, a woman.
Yeah.
It was just like this big, you know, female-fronted outfit. You know, it was Lisa. It was about Lisa Stansfield. It wasn't, you know, it was her voice, her songs, singer, songwriter, performer, you know, everything in the one package, you know. And I think, you know, sometimes I think maybe not enough is made of her contribution to music.
Definitely agree. So when you talk about, you know, going out and grabbing things and making things happen for yourself, I think we should talk about this next track, Donna Giles, and I'm Telling You I'm Not Going. Because
I'm so mad with myself, because I wrote a discography for the back of the book, and I forgot to put it in.
Oh, well, and here's your chance to correct
it. It's in the story. This track is in the story now. The story is Donna Giles, and I'm Telling You I'm Not Going. It's a track from Dreamgirls. It's a song from Dreamgirls, and it's ordinarily a slow, soulful, show-stopping R&B tune, but XL signed it and had Donna Giles re-vocal it, and had Stonebridge. He was the remixer of the moment. I think probably around 92, 93, 94. And he did a series of remixes of which the Poppers, I think it was Stonebridge Poppers Delight remix, just became the most enormous anthem in clubs in Manchester anyway, but definitely in gay clubs. And I hammered it. I absolutely hammered it. But there is one particular story, there was one particular time when I hammered it where it was the night that it was the first night that I was DJing after I'd done my finals. And I was DJing at the Saturday night club that Paul Cons and Lucy Sher had at home in Ducey Street. And we'd misbehaved a bit, and we'd really misbehaved a bit. And I was not in the best state, let's say. I don't know how much I can say about this, but I was not in the best state.
It's all in the book, love. It's too late to say. It's too late to say. Can I say this? There's a whole chapter.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know. I'd taken ecstasy, right? Let's just put it out there.
It was the 90s, hun. No one cares.
It was the 90s. Yeah, it was the 90s, and I'd just graduated, so it was just like, why not? But I was working, I was DJing, and I'd taken this pill, which, it was my mistake. It was a bold move because I am really bad with drugs. I have no resistance to anything like that, not even pharmaceutical drugs. I don't really take headache tablets or anything like that because a lot of them are just too strong for me. So why I took an entire pill, who can say? And as I played this Donna Giles record, I'd been struggling up until the point of playing this Donna Giles record, and then I played it and I came up on the pill, and I was just like, I need to dance. I need to dance not this side of the decks. I need to dance on that side of the decks with all my friends who were different shades of lost it, never going to find it. And we were dancing and I was just soaring. I love this record. The lyrics are fantastic. It tells the story of my life for the last 30 years. And I'm telling you, I'm not going. I am not going anywhere, mate. Only that the record finished and I'm still dancing with my friends. And I'm like, where's the DJ? Oh, yeah, that's me. So then I go back round and then I'm trying to DJ. But now I've really come up on the pill because I've been dancing and enjoying the party with my friends. And everything just goes on a...
the story.
It's all in the book. It's all in the book.
And I am telling you, you're the best that I ever know. There's no way I could ever go. I'm leaving without you. I'm leaving without you. I don't wanna be free. I'm staying. And you're gonna love
It's one of those moments that every single person who has read this book so far has said that moment is a key moment in the book, and I forgot to put it on the discography. I can't believe I've done it. I've just been like checking and going back to the proof and the print ready PDF and looking and going, I've really not put it on.
So there's always something. But you have the memories forever. That's the thing.
Yeah, well, it's in the book anyway, so it's listed, but it's not in the discography, which means it's not on the playlist that I created either. So, it's a miss.
Well,
it's a miss.
There's a certain amount of irony in it being called the Popper's Delight Mix as well.
Well, exactly, because we know what was happening when that record was on, and it was just such a moment. And even now, as many times, I still play this record now, and I remember a couple of years ago, I couldn't find my vinyl, and I wanted to play it on Mary Ann Hobbs mix, and I sent a message through LinkedIn to Stonebridge just saying, look, I know it's a bit of a weird one, but can you send me a high res sound file? And he did it.
Oh, nice.
He sent me the whole thing on WAV, and about a month later the track got re-licensed.
No, there you go, you see, it's making things happen. I like it.
Yeah, but I mean, and people started playing it again. It was just like, I'm not saying that was all down to me at all, but
you did your bit. I
did my bit.
I tell you what, as well, listening to that record, because I didn't really know it before. I guess at that time I was probably a bit more no vocals and heads down techno, but what a vocal performance by Donna Giles. She is eating the microphone.
Absolutely eats that big time. And I love vocals like that. And I think that's one of the things that has made it sometimes a bit difficult for me in terms of being a house music DJ anyway, is that I love vocals. I love sing-alongs. I like songs that allow us to connect with ourselves in a way where our story, we can hear our story in the lyrics, we can feel our story in the melodies and the bass lines, and the beats are pulling us into some kind of uplifting communion on the dance floor. Those are the tracks that I like, but there have been moments where vocals have not been cool.
Well, certainly, when I was doing my little raving periods in the early 90s, vocals were very much a northern thing.
Exactly.
Where we were down south in Oxford and Oxfordshire and all that kind of stuff, there weren't very many vocals. But then the difference when you went up the motorway was night and day. I've got friends who grew up in Liverpool, and the stuff they were listening to at the Quad and the stuff going on at the Hacienda, it was much more kind of uplifting, really. And much
the more songs, the better.
More song orientated,
Yeah, totally. So you can imagine what a contrast it was for me when in 1994 I decided to move to London. I very much at a peak in my career in terms of Manchester, and then I've moved to London because I've got a residency every Saturday night at the Zap Club, and I'm playing at Heaven, and I'm playing all over the place. It's like, it makes more sense to move because there weren't any high-speed trains, and it was just a nightmare.
With bags of records in those days.
Getting from Manchester.
USB stick, was it?
Getting from Manchester to Brighton wasn't easy in 1994. It wasn't straightforward at all. So, it made sense to me to move. But then musically,
very different,
it was very, very different. And I found it hard to get my foot in, and to really find my rhythm in terms of clubbing, because I was playing vocals. It wasn't the style, it was very sort of club dubby, but then I found the places, and I did what I always do. I build it. You find one place where you can play, and you start to play there a lot, and then you start to play other places, and you kind of start clubbing, and you discover new corners and new people, and you meet new people, and you connect, and then it takes a while, but then you find the places where you can play.
Make it happen. It's interesting as well. Like, the story of. I mean, it's lovely and humble actually that you can tell this story about like losing your shit on the pill and then trying to find your way back to the DJ. And there's I
didn't really. I had to go home.
Brilliant. Well, I noticed there's a bit of a running thread of that because 2 or 3 times you left the decks to have a dance and then got chucked out by bouncers thinking you weren't the DJ.
Yeah. That was hilarious, though. That was hilarious.
I'm the DJ. No, you're not. God. Wait till the music ends. Then,
that
then you're going to know.
So funny. So funny, and it happened 3 years on the trot in Montreal. I'm playing this enormous party, the Black and Blue Festival, and the security tried to bum rush me off my own stage.
Outrageous. But I love that because there's a certain amount of honesty and humility to be able to get. Some DJs are going to glance over that, and they don't want to talk about those moments. But what I like about the book... Nobody does. Your book, though, is very interesting because not only are you happy to talk about that and have a laugh about it, but also you talk a little bit about, the work of DJing, which isn't like moving bricks from one place to another. But once you've had to stay in your millionth, rather run down, bed and breakfast, or you're travelling and you spent 7 hours in the latest airport. I mean, all of that travelling and just rough sleeping, essentially, in various states, that takes a big toll on you. And also the whole lifestyle, being upside down all the time, and sleep becomes like a real holy grail,
Absolutely that. And the older you get and the longer you do it, it really does, So when people ask why I don't drink and I don't take drugs anymore, this is why, because if you want to keep doing it, I just don't like hangovers. Yeah. And the older you get, bouncing back from a hangover is not the bounce. You don't bounce. You just want to die for 3 days, and I'm too busy to lose 3 days to a hangover, and I am not as busy as I don't know how the other guys do it who are much bigger than me. I don't know how, maybe, Amelie Lenz is pregnant. I don't know how she's coping with her pregnancy at the same time as having the most enormous DJing schedule. I don't know how, David Guetta is handling his 256 dates a year, or, how do people do it? But for me, in order for me to continue doing the 10th of what they're doing, I've had to reassess how I am in a club, how I party, how long I spend there, how I get there, It's just, it really does take it out of you. And I think there is a reason why, mental health is a big deal for a lot of DJs, because you're on the front line every day. When you get into a club, there's a stress. It is an excitement, and the adrenaline is off the scale for 60 minutes to 2 hours, or even 4 hours if you're playing a longer set, and crazy people that do 7 and 9 hour sets. That's half a day. Yeah. When it's a full day in the office. It's a full day in the office.
I regularly do 6 hour sets, and that's a long time to be standing up. Never mind anything else.
Yeah, to be standing up, to be two thinking in fours, noughts, ones, fours, 8, 16. You're counting for the entire time. If you're beat matching, you're definitely counting for the entire time. And at the same time, you're doing this weird quadratic equation in your head. If not that, then this.
Yes, yeah. How is that going to affect the next round?
How's that going to affect? And then you've got the outside external influences of tour manager tugging his shoulder, sound guy tugging your shoulder, really loud monitors, cannon confetti, punters taking pictures, punters showing you signs, your shit, pump it up. You know, that like you were on the front line for receiving everything, all sorts of messages when you're trying to focus on, you know, creating a really beautiful sonic environment for everybody to enjoy.
Yeah.
And there's no wonder, you know, it is a high pressure, high alert way of earning a living.
Yes.
And it's not, you know, I'm not complaining because I really, you know,
Yeah, it comes through that
we
you
get
love
off on it to a degree
Yeah.
because, you know, if you know, because we like it, we do it because we love it. And I love playing music and I love sharing music with people. But there's a point where I've had to think, how can I do it where it's not going to push me too much into the red?
Yeah. It's a delicate balance, and you know, we've seen various DJs like Avicii and that sort of thing, you know, having proper breakdowns. I mean,
Totally.
Benga had to
I've
take
had-
a couple of years off playing just because I think there's all that expectation and the work itself and the lack of sleep and and if you have that lifestyle as well, it, you know, with the best way in the world, it's gonna grind everyone down. Do you know?
I tell you what, the three worst things for me: sleep deprivation, hunger, and bad tech.
Bad tech, yeah, that's the worst.
If I don't get the tech that I've put on my rider, and if the tech that they give me is, you know, not working, wow, what that does for my state of mind is not cool.
Brings on that panic, doesn't it, inside you, where you're thinking, oh, how am I going to make this work?
It's just trying to control a reaction that you don't want other people to see.
Yeah.
That, you know, when you're in front of people, you can't be in that state where something's not working and you need to correct something.
It sort of
Everything
snowballs
should
for you,
be-
doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
you get self-conscious and then you realise everyone's staring at you and waiting for the next thing, and then you're thinking,
Well, you can't, and maybe they're even not, but it just feels
Feels that
like
way,
they
yeah.
are. It feels like they are. You know, chances are people won't realise anything that's going on. You know, I had a situation at a festival this year where, you know, I have on my rider that I don't have anybody behind me while I'm playing. I don't enjoy it. It's a distraction.
yeah,
And people don't really realise when they're getting drunk that they're getting drunk and standing in front of you
yeah,
while you're supposed to be performing. So I have it that there should be nobody behind me. And at one festival, someone came into the booth. Two people came into the booth. One of them asked me to play a drum and bass track, which is just like, mate,
Have you been
who
here for
are
the last
you?
few hours?
How did you get in here? And have you been listening to anything I've played? It's like, so I'm physically pushing this guy out of the booth. No security, nobody anywhere. And then the next thing, a woman came up who was on mushrooms, who was arguing with me in whatever was happening in her head. I don't know where she was, but she wasn't at this festival and I wasn't who she thought I was. But, you know, she's having a bargee with me while I'm trying to DJ. And it was just like, people don't know that you have to deal with that, and people don't realise when they're acting like that what it's doing
yeah,
while you're trying to concentrate, and you're having to kind of put a natural reaction, which is to push someone away, because social media is such that, you know, and people have done it, you know, like I can't remember who the male DJ was that kind of pushed a girl from standing on the speaker and the speaker fell. And then he was the
the bad guy, yeah.
bad guy. not the person that had stumbled into the DJ booth and shouldn't actually have been there. And that, you kind of always fighting this, what people see and what people think they see, and you can't have anything recorded and you can't have pictures taken of you having a bit of an argument with people. And the pressure of presenting something that is just like, everything's fine. When two of your CDJs aren't working, you've got a weird randomer here that's asking you for drum and bass.
This is the thing, those people that end up coming into the booth and demanding all sorts of things, do they do that in other walks of life? Do they go up to the bus driver and say, could you take the other route? I'd prefer to go down that. You know, just let me do my job, mate.
Exactly. You know, or failing that, just give me your work address so that I can come in on Monday around 11:30 and scribble all over what you've been doing. Because basically what you're doing when you walk in and flash your request is scribbling all over somebody else's hard fought
that you've spent all week thinking about, you know,
that you spent all week thinking about, all day coming up to the gig thinking, if not that, then this. You've stood on the stage, you're creating this thing off, you know, on the bounce off of the people, which you couldn't do up until the point that you're live. So that is changing all the time anyway, depending on how people are reacting. You know, what you plan to do might not be even what you end up doing. And then getting different, different interruptions that you don't need is just like, mate,
stop.
Not now.
What I liked about the book is that you do talk about all of these things and the down things, but you talk about them in quite an amusing way, and it's nice that you don't cover any of that up. But let's park all those DJ troubles aside, and let's
not. I've got a lot to get off my chest.
Well, we can carry on.
Coughing it up like a furball.
Oh yeah. But your last choice sounds more like the kind of memory that keeps us all coming back, that makes us want to play records. So tell us a little bit about Leo and Bushwhacker and Love Story, the Paul Woodford mix.
Yeah, Paul Woodford. Yeah, well, it's a record that was around in the noughties. So finally is a Kings of Tomorrow track, Sandy Rivera, Julie McKnight singing, and you know it was. That track was out originally on Defected Records, and I loved it as a soulful house vocal track. It's a classic. You can still play it in its original version now. It is a spiritual track, because for whatever people think it's about, you know, she is singing about going to meet your maker and how, you know, a death is received, but it also talks about love and loss and the acceptance of self, just the realization. So lyrically and vocally is one of the perfect spiritually uplifting house music tracks. But then along came Leo Paskin and Matthew Bushwhacker in the 2000s, and they wrote a track called Love Story, which was, I mean, it is a classic tech house track, but it had a different kind of vocal on it. It had a more bluesy male vocal on it, and it was great as it was. But then I don't know whether it was Matthew or Leo or the pair together realised that the finally vocal went perfectly together with Love Story, with the instrumental of Love Story. So they put those together, and it was, again, for both sets of people, it was a great hit. Fast forward to 2023, and I am looking for tracks to do my essential mix. And I spoke to Paul Wolford, and I'm like, oh, Wally, is there anything you can say that people haven't maybe heard so much? And I spoke to Dan Eats Everything, and he sent me stuff, and various people sent me stuff for my essential mix. But the real starring moment was this Paul Wolford remix of Leo and Bushwhacker versus KOT, Love Story, Finally. And I included it on my essential mix, and it was one of those moments that I got a lot of requests, like, where's that, who's done that remix, that kind of thing. And I played it again. It was just one of those moments. It was the last record that I played when I played San Remo's stage at Glastonbury this year.
Oh, lovely. That must have been delightful.
Just watching that dance floor bounce to this track, and my nephew, it was such a special moment. Anyway, my nephew, Luke, who's a DJ, had bought his 20 mates. I couldn't believe it. Like, he didn't just bring one mate, he bought 20 mates to the tent.
I don't think I've got 20 mates.
To support Auntie P, you know, and it's just like, oh my God. You know, it's just so nice having family in the house anyway, family and friends in the house anyway. Even though I don't particularly enjoy having people behind me, there are certain people that are allowed. And Luke, because he's a DJ as well, and he really understands the culture and the codes of where to stand and who to bother and who not to bother and when to bother me and whatever. So I love having him in the booth. And they were all down on the dance floor when I played this track, and he filmed it, and I put the clips on my Instagram, and then I got him and all his mates up in the booth, and we just really enjoyed that moment together. And it was just in the changeover between me and Job Jobs, and it was such a moment. It was just wonderful, and I'm still playing that record.
Time marches on, never ending. Time keeps its own time. Here we stand at beginning, and end goes passing us by, and I can't dream for us all. I hope I'm in a better state when here and now crumbles and falls, and you who make worlds collide. I knew you'd come knocking one day, unannounced like a thief in the night. So tell me, how do you do? Finally I meet you.
You know, that's kind of one of the most beautiful things about being a DJ and playing, you know, music like house music that does take influences and mix them all together. I mean, that record's amazing anyway, because the Love Story part of it, actually, the bass line's a sample of Devo, you know, the American punk groups.
I love Devo.
There's so much going on in those layers. You've got this punk bass line. You've got this lovely washy housey synth thing. Then, as you say, you've got a much more soulful, spiritual vocal that's being put on top of that. Put all of that together and stick it in front of a load of people. And the power that generates, the love that generates, those moments last, don't they? Yeah,
they really do. And it's a moment that really did, it filtered through, because after that set and after that moment, there's a group of people who saw that set. They landed on me by accident at San Remo in Glastonbury, but they're from Manchester. And those people since that set have followed me all around the UK ever since they saw me play and heard me play that record at Glastonbury. And I wish I could remember all of their names because it's just gone out of my head now. But I'd like to dedicate that track to my nephew Luke, his 20 mates, and all the people from Manchester that were at San Remo that have since followed me at every gig.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a lovely thing, and it's a great record.
It's communion, it's community.
Absolutely.
It's, you know, it's peace, love, unity and respect.
And it's, you know, it's great as well because you have done the hard miles. You've been DJing in different countries, different cities. You've done A&R, you've done PR, you've done TV, you've done all this stuff. And yet, when I hear you talk about that, you're, you know, we say about the hairs going up on the back of your neck and that sort of thing, you know, you can hear that there's still so much love for what you do. I love the line.
I absolutely love music.
The line in your book where you say, I love it when people ask me what I do, and I proudly say I'm a DJ. That's, you know, to still feel like that after all these years. That's great.
Yeah. And I am proud of it, and I'm more proud of it now than I have ever been. Because when I started DJing, it wasn't a job. It wasn't even a job to be proud of. It was, you know, everyone thought, you know, soon she's going to stop and get a proper job.
Yeah.
And it's the job I've stuck the longest at. Yeah. So if that's not a proper job, then tell me what is.
Mate, you've got a Lifetime Achievement Award from DJ Magazine. You have.
More to come.
And there will be more to come, I've no doubt. But
Not
you've
dead
definitely
yet.
earned the title of DJ. And I'm so glad that you came to speak to us today. And it's been lovely talking about your memories and just hearing your enthusiasm.
I've loved it. I love music. It's just that simple. I've never, you know, maybe this is why I'm not a super uber megastar, is because I haven't ever done it for the money. It's always been, what about music? The music's got to be this way. And I've been very particular. And, you know, maybe people might not like the music that I play because you know, I'm also proud of the fact that I love vocals, and I will play lots of vocals. I will play lots of instrumentals as well, but I'm really vocal, melody, bass lines, beats driven. But music to me is like the blood in my veins. It always has been, and it always will be.
Well, I think that's the perfect note to end on, and thank you so much for talking to us today, Paulette. I really, really enjoyed talking to you today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've got loads more stories to tell.
Know.
So tell me, how do you do? Finally, I meet you. You don't know what I've been through. Waiting and wondering about you. I had a dream my trip would end up at you. And now I know paradise.
If you like this podcast, if you enjoyed this podcast, just remember for 1 second that you got to listen to it for free. And I know I don't work very hard on this pod, but Eamon does. And if you enjoyed it, then you owe it, mostly to him, a little bit to me, to share it with your friends. If you know someone who you think would enjoy this pod, who's interested in music, who's interested in our nonsense conversations, just share the love. Put it on your socials, send a link to a mate. And if you really like it, but only if you like it, please leave us a review.